Nun Hey, all the way to the end of Nun Zayin Amud Bet. The rest of the parak is all Agadita.
The good stuff.
Well, maybe yes, maybe no. It's the good stuff. We just had the theme that comes up, and it doesn't come up through all the Agadita, but it will come back periodically, is that you are responsible for other people. If you could have stopped them from sinning and you didn't, it's on your cheshbon. Okay, so really, in other words, you can't sit back and say, I don't know nothing, I don't want to do nothing, it's not my problem, let someone else worry about it, right? And we talked about the Beit of the Reish Galusa is responsible for the sins of the entire Jewish people because they have the political clout to do so.
And we're not talking about machti acherim.
No, we're talking about if you sit back and you could stop people from doing something.
You knew that they live in New York, you believe they
I'm in New York, you come over and tell my children to go.
There's one that they were correct, okay.
So maybe it is.
Right. Or if
I don't
think it's an Avera at that point.
I don't think it's an Avera.
But you know what? But if the Lubavitcher stands outside and he puts tefillin on people, he's actually doing that thing as well. He doesn't want to sit back when people didn't do the mitzvah. So of course, not doing a mitzvah is not necessarily doing an Avera. We understand the difference, but the question that will come up, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, is of course what happens today, where many people do not do what they're supposed to do. What is our culpability? The basic rule we work with, if we know they're not going to listen, sometimes it's better they should do it b'shogig than do it b'mezid.
Right.
But that's a value judgment. How do you know? And in fact, the piece of Gemara we had done last time was where it's a long Lagadata, which we're not going to go through. It's a very cryptic nevuah in Yecheskel chapter 9. But as Chazal understand it, the tzaddikim were going to be saved, and this is the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash that Yecheskel sees in this vision of what will take place. He's not there; he's actually in Babel, of course. Very different than what takes place, and there are these destroying angels, and basically HaKadosh Baruch Hu changes his mind and starts killing everybody. Or the destroying angel kills everybody because what did they do wrong? They didn't stop the others from sinning. Oh, but the others wouldn't have listened. They didn't know that. How could they know that for sure? You know that, I know that, but they had no right to make that assumption. So that's a very harsh thing, but that's the one thing we're going to come up. The other thing that we're going to come up is because we're talking about sin, and I forget exactly how we're going to get onto this. It's first of all, do people die without sin? Right? Is there ever anyone who who died for just because, I guess, I don't know, the body ran out? But if the body runs out, there's a theological reason. Okay, or not, right? Or not, or is everybody associated with the sin? And if that's the case, then how do we understand certain scenarios of our ancestors? It looks like they sinned, but Chazal understand they really didn't sin. Did Reuven really sin by mixing up and sleeping with Bilhah, whatever it was? Did David HaMelech sin by killing Uriah? That's a very tricky one. Did Shlomo HaMelech sin by serving idols with all his 1,000 wives? Okay? Well, it may not be a question to you, but obviously it was a question to Chazal. And so forth and so on. The sons of Eli, did they sin? Okay, Chazal take it up. Right, Chofni and Pinchas. Or maybe only one sinned, or maybe none sinned. The same thing, the sons of Shmuel. What do we think about them? So, if you ever wanted to know where the Gemaras come from that say that these guys did not sin, that's what you're going to kind of come
in here. I admit
we're going to get to it in the next few weeks.
Yeah. We're suggesting that there were human beings, Jewish human beings, mind you, that never sinned. They were pure, altogether.
Moshe Rabbeinu?
Even Moshe Rabbeinu.
Like that. We'll see that tomorrow. Right. We will see that in the eyes of Chazal, there were a handful or half a handful of humans who did not sin.
Never sinned.
Yoshua Chavetz Chaim? No. So Tosfos asked that question. Tosfos says that's dealing with most people. If you believe that there was one or two people who didn't sin, so never meant to say there's never one. Just the chances of you being one of those kind of guys is like so small, 0.00000. It's like other main baris.
No, but I think it has secrets.
So we'll deal with this.
We're not really human. In
Everybody sins.
Well,
I don't go for that.
everybody sins. But you say that just to make yourself feel good sometimes.
No. I don't see how.
I say it because Hashem is Hashem.
Okay. So you and I will have to grapple with this when it comes up in the Gemara. Okay.
Moshe said it's not across the sea.
Just trying to give you a trailer on what you're about to see. You can't leave them before you hear the Marshall movie. At any rate, the last piece that we did, the story with Yechezkel, though. The last piece that we did with Yechezkel, where the righteous died because they didn't stop the sinners from sinning. So let's see if I remember how we get into this. So they were called. Hashem put a tough on them, on everybody. First, Hashem wanted to put a tough on the sinners, and Hashem put a tough on the righteous people. One got a red tough, one got a black tough. And the end of the story was, what was the letter tough signify? Why a tough? It's like all the letters of the alphabet. And what? Right.
Aleph and tough.
So one, it was a simple answer. They sinned everything. They either did everything good or they sinned everything from Aleph to Tav. Okay. There's a number of other answers, including the fact that Tav represents the chotam of Hashem, which is Emet, ending with Emet. But the other one is, and that's how we're going to get to this piece now, is Tammuz Chut Avot. Okay. That the Tav stands for that's it. The Chut Avot is over, and now everybody is culpable. Nothing can be hidden, and there's no way you can just hang it on God to say save us because of the merit of our ancestors. So that we're going to talk now about when does the Chut Avot actually end. That's the first piece of this Agadah. Some of this Agadah, by the way, is troubling. Okay, but before we do the Agadah, let me just preempt the questions that will come up. You all believe in Chut Avot, I hope, right? Now, if we say that Chut Avot is no longer today, what are we going to do? Right? So there are two things Tosfos said. First of all, Tosfos said there still is Brit Avot. There's Chut Avot, there's merit of our ancestors, but there's a covenant. A covenant can't be broken regardless of whether you like it. So Tosfos says even if you follow this Gemara, that Tammuz Chut Avot, we still have Brit Avot. And Tosfos suggests that it may be that there are opinions that say that when this Chut Avot ends for the Rishayim. Tzaddikim still can get Chut Avot. But no, it's no longer a given that you get Chut Avot. You can get Chut Avot if you deserve it. Right? But Brit Avot is still there. And then the third approach is really the Rishonim say that, well, there are other Medrash that seem to argue with this Gemara that maybe Chut Avot still exists. So don't lose hope. This is not the only source in the world. Okay? So at any rate, just to let you know where we're going to get into, because we're going to talk about when does the Chut Avot end? Where do we know? In other words, if it ended, when did it end? Okay? Where do we find a marker that it is? And all these markers are going to be one of two things. Either they're going to show you an example where the Navi talks about Chut Avot, so the Gemara is going to say that's the last time it happened, which means that's the end. Or the Navi doesn't talk about Chut Avot, which means it ended before this Nevuah took place. So it's going to give us about a half a dozen different suggested times when Chut Avot ended. They're either going to be, it mentions Chut Avot, which means that's the last time, or it doesn't mention Chut Avot, which means it happened prior to that. Okay? So it's a little disconcerting because it talks about the ending of Chut Avot. Meimot, everybody have it? There's 13 lines in the bottom, and you have it in that Steinzel thing. You got it, Archie? From when does the Chut Avot end? I don't know how they translate it. Yep.
Sorry, where are we?
Nun Hey Amud Aleph, 13 lines in the bottom. The last word is Avot. Last one on the line is Avot.
Yeah.
Okay? Meimatai is Thomas Chut Avot. So when does it end? So Amar Rav, Mimos Hoshea ben Be'eri. From the end of the death of Hoshea, this is the prophet Hoshea. I'm not sure when he lives. Shenemar Agalet Nivlata li Einai. I'm going to show the Vala, the disgustingness or the carcass in front of all those who love her. V'ish lo yatzilenu miyadi. I'm going to reveal all the things that Israel have done wrong, and no one will be able to save the Jewish people. V'lo yatzilenu miyadi. No one can save the people from me, which means, guess what? There's no Chut Avot. There's nothing, no merit. It's all over. So the first approach is you see that Hoshea is prophesying that Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to punish the people, is going to make their sins become bare and aware to people, and therefore there's nothing nothing can save them. That's number one. Shmuel Amar Mimech Chazael, King Chazael. This is from the end of the first base of Mikdash. Shenemar Chazael Melech Aram. This is Chazael, the king of Aram. Lochatz Es Yisrael Kol Yimei Yehoaz. He made trouble, or he oppressed the Jewish people all days of Yehoachaz. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave chen, and He mercy to them. Vayifan aleim, He turned to the Jewish people. Laman britot Avraham et Yitzchak et Yaakov. V'lo ava hashchitam v'lo shlicham mi'apanav arata. And He didn't leave because of His brits with Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. He didn't let Chazael destroy them. He didn't let them throw them off of the face of the earth until now. So this is the narrator referring to that. Until now means till time this was actually written, Sefer Melachim, whenever this chapter was written. Melachim Beis Perek Yud Gimel. So you see that what is mentioned, Zchut Avot.
Absolutely. No, Brit Avot.
Brit Avot.
Brit Avot.
Yeah, you're right, Brit Avot. Okay, but Brit Avot becomes in this discussion interchangeable with Zchut Avot. Okay, I'm sorry.
And he's taking the word
right.
So meaning that he's stopping now as opposed to up till now there was no problem.
Rashi seems to use them interchangeable. It's the Tosfos who kind of makes the differentiate between Zchut Avot and Brit Avot. Okay, so Rashi says, after this point, God threw them off. Lo Panal Brit Avot didn't turn to the Brit Avot. Once again, the Brit Avot, according to Rashi's name, is Zchut Avot. Okay, so in other words, which means that at that point God didn't throw the people off. If God eventually threw the people off the land, as happens in the end of Sefer Melachim Bet, it must have been something changed, which means the Zchut Avot, the Brit Avot ended. Okay? Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Omer, Mimei Eliyahu, from the time of Eliyahu, and this is, you should recognize this is the Haftorah of Kisisa. This is the famous showdown at Har Carmel, where Eliyahu goes up, after the Nevi'ah Baal were dancing all day and trying to do something, and the fire doesn't come down. Eliyahu comes in the time of Mincha, Vayigash Eliyahu Navi, Vayomar, Hashem Elokei Avram Yitzchak v'Yisrael, Hayom Yivodah ki Ato Elokim b'Yisrael, the God of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yisrael, of Yaakov. Remember, today you will show, you will make known that you're the God of Israel. Vani Avdecha, and I am your servant. Uvidvarecha, Udvarcha Asisias Kol Advim Weilan. I did everything you told me to do. And of course, at that point, fire comes down from the heaven. The people all say Hashem Elokim, right? And they all begin to bow down, and everybody's good. But what do you see that Eliyahu refers to? Hashem Elokei Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov. This does not actually refer to the Brit Avot or the Zchut Avot, but he's referencing remembering them. So obviously, the fact that Eliyahu says today, right? Hayom Yivodah. Today, show them. Today is the day, because after this, it ain't going to happen anymore. That's how the Gemara darshans it. So that's actually reasonably early. That's Melachim Aleph. This is earlier than the previous story about Chazal, which was Melachim Bet. Rav Yochanan Amar Mimei Chizkiyahu, from the days of Chizkiyahu, Shneimar Lamarbei HaMisra U'Lashalom En Case. By the way, this Lamarbei, just for those who are interested in the oddities, this is the only place in Tanakh, it doesn't show up in your Talmud, where there's a final mem in the middle of a word. This Lamarbei, the mem is a square mem. Not in yours. It is odd. Okay, it is odd. Correct. Okay, it is odd.
This is probably an error.
I hope not. I don't know. Okay, that's why there's a discussion in Gemara about how the final letters were created. Who invented them? Did they come in Har Sinai? Did the Nevi'im create them? Did the Nevi'im just simply set them in order? Was they confused? People didn't know which are the middle one, which are the real ones, the end ones, which are the middle ones. The Gemara in Masechet Megillah, and the Gemara in somewhere else I don't remember anymore, which talks about it. But you see, and you probably know that because, of course, in the Aseret Dibros, it's actually in Masechet Shabbos, the other place, in this Gemara here. In Aseret Dibros, the Mem and the Samach didn't fall out.
Right, it was a miracle.
Correct. And by the way, we don't know which Mem that is, though. You know, it's only one Samach, but it could have been a Mem from the middle of the word. Right, you just simply know, we know there are two mems. We always assume the final mem is the final mem, but maybe the square mem is the middle mem.
Why only certain letters have end letters? Like in Arabic,
I don't know.
In Arabic, all the letters have end.
I don't know.
First, middle, and end.
Yeah,
in
I don't
Arabic
know.
Writing,
all the letters
have first, middle, and last, because they like it to go like around ninth first. Cursive, they want to go like ninth. So they have separate letters.
I don't know.
No,
I don't know. It's a very good question. We need someone to look up something on the linguistic end. Why only these letters have final letters?
There are words in languages that have a certain way to
correct. All right. The Gemara Masechet in Shabbos talks about that. We actually saw that Gemara, I believe. Did we not see the Gemara? Maybe it comes in a later parak. Actually, maybe it comes in the 12th parak. We actually saw the fact that no, we actually did not see it. In the 12th parak, maybe we'll learn the 12th parak one day, it talks about writing. And if you wanted to write a full word and you only wrote part of a word, then you're chayav for writing. So the example the Gemara gives is, they give a couple of examples. Dun from Daniel, right? You were writing Daniel, you wrote Dun, or Shem Mishimon, or Shem Mishmuel, right? And obviously, the obvious question is, the Shem, the final mem for Shem, is going to be a square mem. So how did you simply, if you wrote Shin mem with a regular mem, is that writing? The answer is it is writing. That gets all discussion about final letters and regular letters and so forth. Okay. The Sachat Shabbat wrote a very famous, Shmuel Barnstein wrote a very, very famous sefer, Shem Mishmuel. Right? We took it from the Gemara, which says Shem Mishmuel. If we wrote Shem instead of writing Shmuel. Okay. Anyways, back at the ranch here. So I'm just pointing it out. It doesn't really show up here, but this is the oddity. The Lamar Beha Misra L'Shalom Ein Case Al Kisei David. That for the there'll be a lot of, I'm not sure what Misra is, rulership. And Shalom, there'll be Shalom without ending on Kisei David via Mamlachto, for the Kisei of David and his kingdom, Lachin Oto, to prepare it, U'Sa'ada b'mishpar v'tzedakah me'ata v'yad olam, for there'll be justice and righteousness from now until the end. Kina Hashem tzvakos tasezot. The zealousness of God will do this, and it means, and so you see, and what's not mentioned here? What's going to do it? The jealousness of Hashem. Kina Hashem tzvakos will do this, and not Zchut Avos. Right, not the Avos. God is going to do it on His own, because God is zealous for the Jewish people. And it says, Me'ata ve'adolam, from here on in, which means there's no more Zchut Avos. So this is from the time of the famous Chizkiyahu, and those are the choices about where the Zchut Avot actually ended. And as I told you, the question is, what about today? Choice one is, we have Brit Avot. Choice two, yes, Zchut Avot is not given. It's not that Zchut Avot ended, but Zchut Avot was not a given. You got to earn it. So if you're a tzaddik, you can still claim for Zchut Avot as an additional claim. And then I think Tosfos and other Rishonim also point out there are other Midrashim that say Li'olam Zchut Avot Kayemet U'Le'olam Anamas Kirem Osam. Right, and we do it, and we include as Zchut Avot in our Tefillot and a lot of other davening on Rosh Hashanah and so forth.
So this is from Yeshayahu.
Yeah.
So if I look up Yeshayahu, I would see this oddity of this mem.
Yes, sir.
In the middle of the of the sentence.
Yes, and you'll probably see a star with on the side will have the regular Lamar Bey. Correct. That's correct. Okay. Talmud doesn't give it to you because Talmud doesn't want to confuse you. Okay. That's the creed. Is it turn up? Look it up. Trust me. Okay. Because I don't know the reason for it, but whatever it is one place where it does come up in the middle of a letter, middle of a word. Obviously, there are no other final letters that I know that do come up in the middle of words, though there are, of course, some large nuns that are in the Torah that almost approach looking like a vav. Okay? And then there is, we have in Parshas Pinchas, which I'm not even going to talk about this now, the first Esbrisi Shalom. I don't know if anyone get the first Aliyah this past week? Any Kohanim here?
No, but there is a break.
There's a break, so it's called the Vav Katia. Vav Katia. Right. And Vav Katia is not even quite sure what it means. There are different interpretations. And actually, I've seen Sifrei Torah that don't even have it, have a regular Vav. It's not a psul, okay? But the Vav Katia either means a small Vav, which is not the word Katia. Katia means cut. It means like it's cut in half. Or it's actually got a break in it, which is very unusual because it's a letter that has a break in it. A letter with a break in it is not a letter.
You mean like a break, like it looks like a yud with a thing?
Yeah, like it looks like a yud with the beginning of a vav, split, and then the bottom of the vav. The space, which is like, what does that mean? That's a broken letter. Broken letters usually go out. Usually puzzle, right.
But you saw that in the Sefer Torah.
Yes, I've seen it in the Sefer Torah. Yes, I can tell you the Sefer Torah that I learned from on Shabbos that Eish did not have anything different. Right, but I'm saying it's called the Vav Katia. It's not. We have Ze'ira. Usually, a little letter is called a Ze'ira. Right, that's Aleph Zero, like in Vayikra. All right. There's large letters. There's all kinds of things. Whatever. There's all kinds of mitzvahs about this. I'm not quite sure what the Vav Katia is, but the fact that it is in Shalom and it's a Shalom in Pinchas, and Pinchas did it with the sword, you can come up with all kinds of drushes. Back at the ranch. Okay, here we are, 3 lines from the bottom. Okay, this is about death without sin. Okay, this is actually very tricky because theologically you're all having difficulty with it even before we started. Okay, I'm not sure I can help you. Rabbi Ami.
We're willing to go along.
Fair enough.
Okay. So first of all, it starts with the opinion that you guys all work with. We all work with. Rabbi Ami. Ein misa below chet. There is no death without any sin. V'ein yisurim below avon. There's no travails, or how would you say yisurim? Trials, pains without sin. And so everything, which means basically everything in this world is going to have something associated with it on a theological basis.
Those who went through the Holocaust would categorically reject this approach.
I told you you're going to have trouble with this.
I believe Eov
Categorically reject.
Eov had a serious problem with this.
So it does not necessarily mean that things are going to be that we can understand the equalness, correct? And it does not mean that there are people that don't go through life that live very well and are not righteous people. And it doesn't mean that they're righteous people that don't have a difficult life, but it means that to really to be able to continue to live and not to have a physicality that breaks down, you can't do it without that can't be done unless you're completely sinless. That's the equation. And everybody has a little bit of Yisurim. So I don't know that I can even touch the concept of the suffering in the Shoah. I can't. Okay, I can't. The Tisha B'Av is coming up very shortly, right? And what took place in the Crusades was as bad for the Jewish people in percentage-wise as many other persecutions. But the fact that you will go through life without any persecutions, any difficulty, is not possible unless you're completely sinless. Which, in other words, as you all said, is how that's possible, right? But the concept is because there's an if-then clause. If you die, then you must have sinned. So you know that something is there, which means if you didn't sin, let's do the logic. If you die, you must have sinned. If you didn't sin, then you will not die. That's the implication.
Right.
Okay? Or the other way around.
Since we don't know anybody
that made it there, right? Okay. Whereas my Uncle Nate used to say, quoting John Wayne, nobody gets out of here alive. Okay, there we go.
I think the problem is the word sin, because
what does it mean?
Because people that don't sin,
right,
don't sin, but there's a higher standard demanded of them. So because they didn't live up to the standard, that's called a sin. How's that?
Maybe yes, maybe no. Okay, maybe yes, maybe no.
There's people that you go through. Right. I think David's father was named Yishai.
Well, he was about to find out about him. Correct. You were kind of ahead in the Gemara. So you'll.
He never say that. By the way, Bas Paroi, her body went up.
Well, whether a body goes up, it's not about living forever. We're not talking about people like Elio who kind of go up in the fiery chariots. We're talking about people who, in other words, the implication is if you didn't sin, you would live forever. And on this world you would have corporeality forever. That's a very tricky kind of concept to understand because we know biologically a body can't live forever.
Well, what do you mean from the Torah? What do you mean by just biologically? Who would we have in the Torah who didn't die?
Correct, that's true. That as well is true. I'm saying, but conceptually, because there's an if-then clause. The implication is, how's it go now, what I say? If you sin, then you die, which means if you didn't sin, you don't die, but it means that everybody sins. So we may not have an example, but the theoretical construct could exist, but what I'm saying is the theoretical construct is a non-issue because we know the body as we know it can't go on forever. Just the reality. Things break down. The body.
There's an Israeli scientist. I saw him a year ago. I was on one of these videos who's working on precisely. To him, it's a given that the body will live.
So
I don't know where he's at in his research.
I don't know where it's at. We can surely extend life. It's not quite sure how you can extend it forever, right? I don't know. I'm not the scientist. I know when they do cloning, when they clone, what they found out about cloning is when you do cloning, the cells that they're using are not the same. They're the cells of an older person, like Dolly the sheep and so forth. All these examples, not human examples, all these examples are examples where the cloned person is not starting from year zero, starting from a much older person. Okay? Not saying that cloning is bad. That's a separate discussion. But in other words, it does not extend life. It actually may be an additional part. You may be creating a sibling, but the sibling will not last forever either.
So then you hear the stories from who flees to Surim, the Olam Hazeh,
the Olam Haba.
Right. So the Olam Haba, they'll have Menucha.
Correct. Yeah. That's not a contradiction to this.
It's not a contradiction.
What this is basically saying is, on this world, if you have no sin, you live forever. The Hasidim understood they sinned. No Hasid would get up to say they didn't sin. Maybe the great Rebbes would say it. No Hasidim would say that. Okay? Everybody understood they weren't perfect, but no, the fact that they're not perfect means they have to pay up somewhere. Better to pay up here than pay up there. But they didn't know and expected to live forever. Right? This is a concept. I said it's a very tricky concept because it means about you can have the ability to live forever and ever. I mean, the implication, by the way, is that if Adam and Chava had not sinned, and we're going to come to a moment, the Etios Shel Nachash, the bite of the snake, they would be here today. That's really the implication. Let's start from the case where you start with a clean slate.
Yeah.
If they had only not listened to that serpent, okay, and the serpent.
The original idea of the Yetzer Hara.
Right. Well, we don't call it the original sin, but we call it a sin that does change things, right? We're going to come to that. Let's not kind of jump ahead so far, okay? So let's go. So the first case is Ein Misa B'lo Ched Ben Yisum B'lo Avon. So Ein Misa B'lo Ched, you understand there's a Gemara, so it has to have psukim to support it. Ein Misa B'lo Ched T'chsiv HaNefesh HaChoteis Hi Tamus. This is from Yecheskel. The person, the soul that sins, he will die. Bein Lo Yisa B'avon Av Lo Yisa B'avon Bein. The child will not carry the sin of the father will not carry the sin of the child. Tzidkas HaTzadik Alav Tiev, Rishas HaRasha Alav Tiev. The righteousness of Tzadik is on him, the wickedness of the wicked is on him, and therefore and so forth, which implies that really sin and death are connected. Why? Because it begins by saying HaNefesh HaChoteis Hi Tamus. Right? So not about not applying one sin to a person, to another person, and everybody's responsible, but the first four words talk about the person, the chet of the person that causes his death. Okay? And once again, pasuk in Yecheskel, not from the Torah. And next pasuk goes, Ein Yisurim B'lo Avon. There is no persecutions without sin. D'chsev, this is taken from Tehillim. Upakadati b'shevet pisham u'v'negayim avonam. I will remember with my staff, their pishaim, and I will remember with negaim, with plagues, their sins. So once again, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying that I'm going to pay them back for what they've done. So if you are having persecutions, I don't like to use the term persecution, having difficulties in this world, then it's because you were not a perfect person. Somewhere there's a payback. And please don't ask me how do you equate them and what kind of scale there is. Okay. So that's the first opening salvo for this Gemara. So far, can we go ahead? Okay. Meisvei. So the Gemara asks the question. Amru Malachei Shor Tzlefei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the angel said to God, Ribono Shel Olam, V'nei Ma Konasta Misa Al Adam HaRishon. Why did you declare or punish death upon Adam HaRishon? So the implication is that you created Adam, should live forever. Right? No one knew about death. Death did not yet exist. Where's the first human death? First human death when Cain kills Hevel. Mm-hmm. He had no idea how to do it. Medrash says he killed him. He was stabbing him all over. He didn't know where to kill him. Damim, right? Cold Damei, because he didn't no idea where was the vital organs.
How did he know that he could kill him?
That's a good question. How did he know the killing was wrong? That's another question.
Maybe he just started banging on.
There was no Ten Commandments that said Lo Tirtzach. Oh, excellent question.
Maybe he's talking to the animals.
So there's a concept in philosophy called natural law.
But wasn't the concept of Torah ingrained in the earlier generation?
Right. So the world is made with the Torah. The Torah exists. The Torah is there. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made Adam. Right. Adam is a combination of Adam and Ruach Nishba Ruach Elokim and Tselem Elokim. So he's got some kind of supernatural peace, and God lives forever, and angels live forever. So why shouldn't man live forever as well? So why did you punish man? It's called a knas, by the way. It's not natural. So Amalehem, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Mitzvah kala tzivisiv yavar. I gave him one commandment, and he couldn't keep one commandment. So if he didn't live up to his potential, why should he go on living forever? So Amrulei, so the angels say back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'alo Moshe v'Aaron shekimu kol HaTorah kula v'meisu. Then they keep the Torah, and how did they die? So Amal Lahem, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachal says back to the angels, Mikra echad l'tzadik v'lo rasha v'latov v'lo ra. There's one judgment for the good and the bad. In other words, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu basically says, Moshe and Aaron died not because they sinned, but because once death is decreed, everybody's got to die. Mm-hmm. That's the gist of the Medrash until now. Right. All right. In other words,
so why did Aaron die 6 months before Moshe? They both said it says clearly that they sinned exactly the same way. Okay, so you're asking a question once again. You're asking about the equation. Why does one person live more? One person live less? Why does a person have a happy life, a less life?
those are good calculations, but the basic rule is, if you don't sin, you don't die.
But the sin was the same for both of them.
Okay, so
Rabbi,
yeah.
but I want to understand the pshat. Okay? If the last pshat we just read seems to contradict the first part,
that's correct.
Seems to imply you don't have to sin.
To die.
God decreed you're going to die.
Right.
Humans are going to die, and that's it, right?
Correct. Okay. That's the question. The question of the Gemara is that based upon this medrash, which is this discussion taking place in heaven between the angels and between the Almighty, why Adam dies because he sinned. Okay, we got it, God, we understand that. But why does Moses die? Why does Aaron die? The response is not because they sinned. In this medrash, which the Gemara quotes, it's not because they sinned, but because guess what? You got to die.
Humans.
They're human. So even if you are a perfect man and you did not sin, you lived a perfect life. I know you're going to say, but Moshe sinned. But right now the medrash assumes not so.
Right.
The implication is, why does Moshe die? Because mikra echad l'tzadik v'lo rasha. What's one judgment? In other words, that's
one
it.
Rule.
One rule. No. In other words, everybody's got to pay a tax. Everybody's got to pay the toll. Okay, which may not be true because some of those big trucks pay a greater toll than a small truck. So let's assume that there's a per capita tax. Everybody pays a per capita tax, like back in the day. So it didn't matter how much you weighed, big person, small person, rich person, a poor person, it was a per capita tax.
Is it fair to ask why animals have to die? The animals don't.
So the answer is it's not fair to ask because they're animals, they're not spiritual. Kadosh Baruch Hu can make anything. Yeah. But why is a human being? Kadosh Baruch Hu created humans and human as a very special entity, which it has certain divineness inspired within them, or built within them. Absolutely. So at any rate, this medrash that we just quoted about the halacha-theory with HaKadosh Baruch Hu seems to be very different than the first approach we had, that if you don't sin, you don't die. Exactly. And once again, we'll leave whether Moshe sinned or not for the next couple lines. So the Gemara says, Hu d'amar ki aitana. So it must be that the previous statement that we started with, about sinning and dying being connected, is going to follow the following statement, not this medrash. There are medrashim which are arguing all the time. Right? So I told you that when we did about the schut avot, and everybody said, where's schut avot? And I told you there are other medrashim that say, no, schut avot still here. Right. So there's another medrash, or another Gemara, which is the Tanya. Who's the author of this? Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. The Tanya, and you probably will agree with this. Maybe one of the few things you agree with today. Rav Shimon Elazar Omer, Af Moshe v'Aaron b'chet hamesu. No, guess what? Moshe and Aaron died. Why? They also sinned. You want to know Malachim why Moshe died, why Aaron died? They weren't perfect. Shenemar, as it says, Yan lo mantem bi lahakti sheni le'nei b'nei Yisrael. Because you didn't trust me, you didn't believe in me to sanctify me before the Jewish people. Lochein lo tiviyas amar lo shalem. You're not going to bring the people in, which means you're not going to bring the people in. You're going to die. So now, what exactly was the sin that Moshe and Aaron did? That's another complexity, right? What did Moshe not do? And Morty raised the fact that if you are a more serious person, a more righteous person, you have a higher bar. Okay, so what was Moshe's bar that he didn't do? He hit the rock, and he speak to the rock. According to the Rambam, he didn't walk the middle line. He got angry at the people. All kinds of answers you could give. What did Aaron do? Was it because of the golden calf? God forgave him because of the golden calf. Was he part of the rock? What's going? What the sin is not important, but the fact that he sins. Say. So, Yano man to be, Zamno man to be. Man to be. Had you actually trusted me, had you done everything according to Hoyle, had you not sinned, had you gotten 100% on the test, then your time would not have come to die from the world. Moshe and Aaron would still be alive. Wow. If they had not sinned at all, they would have lived forever. They're choosing Moshe and Aaron because they're the paradigm of people.
I'm just saying, the wording itself, Adayin lo higias manchem, would have been at the time. I don't know if that meant it, but
that's the implication. They would still be alive today. If they still be alive in the days of this discussion between Malach and Sheretz and Hashem, they'd still be alive today. No, they could live forever and ever. Okay. So far we've seen there are two opinions. Right? Two opinions. One opinion, by the way, one opinion is about Moshe and Aaron. The two opinions are, one opinion is if you don't sin, you don't die. And the second opinion, which was at the top of the page about the Malachim, was that even if you didn't sin, you can die. Right? By the way, corollarily, there are two opinions about Moshe and Aaron. Does Moshe and Aaron sin or not sin? Right? Okay, so now the next Gemara, Meisvei. Now the Gemara is another question. And the famous statement as follows: Arba Meisu be'et Yoshon Nachash. 4 people in this world died because of the bites, I guess. How do they translate etio? Bite?
serpent's counsel.
Oh, counsel. Etio is the counsel of the serpent. Okay. By the way, there are different variations of what actually this is. I mean, the counsel of the serpent is Eve and the Yetzadas, right? Eve and the true knowledge. They follow the counsel and so forth. But there's a Gemara. There's a Gemara in Masechet Shabbos. It's somewhere else. It's towards the end of the Masechta, which actually talks about the Zuha Mashal Nachash. The how should I say it? This sweatiness of the serpent, and there's the Medrash kind of feels that the whole reason for the serpent's counsel, there's a lot of sexuality here, is because the serpent wanted to have sex with Eve, correct? Right. And there's the Zuhama, the sweatiness of the serpent rubbed off on Eve, even though that she looked like she did reject him, it didn't reject, not clear, and rubs off on Adam because of this, and that's what the whole counseling is all about. So it's a little more graphic, the Zuha Mashal Nachash, which we never really seem to get rid of. So actually the Gemara there says we got rid of it at Har Sinai. But the moment we flipped back, we kind of probably got it back again. Okay, Gemara has all kinds of questions about this, by the way, the Zuha Mashal Nachash, because it means that the other nations, which never stood at Har Sinai, still have the Zuha of Nachash, this sweatiness, this bestiality of Nachash.
They have it worse than us.
And they have it worse than us, yes. And then the Gemara says, what about Gerim? What about Gerim? What about Gerim? So the Gemara says,
the mikveh, they must get cleaned up.
So actually the Gemara says their mazel. Everybody has a mazel. You have like in the guardian angel. Their guardian angel was at Sinai. The ger that converted hundreds and thousands of years later, their precursor guardian angel was there at Sinai. All kinds of questions that Gemara gives. But the bottom line is, Et Yosha Nachash is a lot cleaner here. It's about the counsel of Nachash. What it really means to say is that just the fact that they became human and they had to live with a Nachash, and it's enough of a reason that even a perfect person could not live forever. Something rubbed off on Adam and Eve, whether it was the sexuality, which is of course bestiality, or this just the counseling, the connivingness, but just rubbing, so to speak, rubbing shoulders with the Nachash makes you into a Nachash, or makes you less divine. Right? If you walk into a barn, you're going to come out smelling like a pig, that kind of statement. So in other words, what it really means is, just to make sure you should understand where we're going with this, means that even if you never sinned in the world, the fact that you are human and you are a descendant from Adam and Chava who had to hova with a Nachash, and some of that Nachashness kind of rubbed off on them, so either figurative or literally, means that you can't ever get out of this world. You've got a physicality that you can never escape, and that physicality will break down. Right. Which is why we don't live forever, because what really ties us to this world? The physicality. You can be the most spiritual person. Right? You can learn 24 hours a day, you can pray 24 hours a day, but when the body breaks down, the body is really tied to the physicality of Adam and Chava, and it goes back to that physicality of the Nachash moment, when the Eitz and the Eitzadas.
Even in that part of the Chumash, in the beginning, it said, God says, Me'ah Be'esrim Shana or whatever, and you're going to die, right?
Good. Okay. So look at this statement. Here comes, now that was the easy part of this mimer. Okay. So the Mar says, Arba Mesu Be'at Yoshon Nachash. 4 people died simply because of the physicality rubbing off of the Nachash with Adam and Chava, which means they did nothing else wrong in their lives.
Right.
Okay, and now who these people are, very, very unusual. The Elohein, and it's a Masorah. 3 of them are a Masorah. 1 has a proof in the Pasuk, but the proof in the Pasuk, you'd be better off if it was a Masorah. It didn't have a proof in the Pasuk. The Elohein, Binyamin ben Yaakov, this is Binyamin, right, brother of Yosef. Amram Avi Moshe, Amram. The 3rd one is Yishai Avi David. Who said that? Morty said that, right? Yishai. And number 4 is Kilav ben David, Kilav the son of David. I don't know why these guys...
But these guys are hardly mentioned.
Can't remember Kilav.
Well, Kilav is never... everybody says, I've never heard of him. I never heard of him either. It's okay. He's obviously one of the sons of David. I don't know.
Father's nothing mentioned about him until now.
What?
David?
So his father.
Who?
David's father.
David's father?
Yishai.
Correct. Very little.
Much about him?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Correct. And why?
We know who he is.
But besides
I understand Binyamin is righteous because all the other brothers sold Joseph and he didn't. But okay, that's enough to get him to live forever? All it means is he could have lived. And what's the other one? The second one is Amram, the father of Moshe. What do we know about Amram? These are all people that are nobodies. I don't want to say nobodies. These are all people we know very little about. They would not have been on your list of the top 4. Okay, but the Gemara, once again, the Gemara says, right? Look, how do they know this? V'kulu Gemara. All of them are a tradition. Gemara does not mean Gemara here. Gemara means a tradition. How they had the tradition, I don't know. Tradition is tradition. Tradition. The Levar mi Yishai b'Avi David, except for the Yishai ben David, that they have some kind of hint in Sefer Shmuel, which we'll get to in a moment. Okay. So before we do the story about how do you know that Yishai was one of these four, because all the other threes we don't have. So let's just should we plan out to you what the question is going to be? Okay, you want to see where this is? You want to see how do we know about Yishai first?
No.
Oh, let's do Yishai first, okay? So let's do Yishai first. We'll do it in order. So the Gemara says as follows: how do we know Yishai? He's the only one that we really can prove. The Chsiv, okay, it's a very really convoluted proof. V'yasamasa sham Avshalom tachas Yoav Saratzava. This is when Avshalom broke away from David, and he formed his own pseudo-kingdom, cohort. So in place of Yoav, he put Amasa. The Amasa ben Ish, and the Amasa was the son of a man, Ushmo Yisra HaYisraeli. Amasa was, just telling you his genealogy, the son of Yisra Yisraeli. Asher bo el Avigal bas Nachash achot Tzruya, aim Yoav. And who was the mother of Yoav? So this Yisra Yisraeli was his father. Who was the mother of Amasa? I'm sorry. The father was Yisra Yisraeli. He had relations, or he married Avigail, the daughter of Nachash, the sister of Tzruya, who was the mother of Yoav. So in other words, it's telling you there's a relationship between Yoav, who was thrown out.
Who's the Ben Dad of David?
Correct, right. Exactly. So this is the pasuk. This is a pasuk which refers to people who we don't have a clue who they are, and quite honestly, it's really not important for the story, except the fact that we know these mishpachot Yoav. So the Gemara says, one second, who do we know about Avigail? Avigail, v'chi bas Nachash Havoi, was Avigail really the daughter of this guy Nachash? V'alo bat Yishai Havoi, she was the daughter of Yishai, the Chsiv, because once again we quote in Divrei Yomim, where once again we're listing other a parallel genealogy, V'ach Yoseim, Tzruya v'Avigail, I skip on, Tzruya v'Avigail, so, and there it says that she is the daughter of Yishai. So Yishai's brothers or sisters are Tzruya and Avigail. Okay, so we know that she is, I forgot all the relationships correct here, but the bottom line is we know from the second pasuk that Avigail's father was not Nachash but was Yishai. So why is she called Bas Nachash? Ella must be that the name Nachash is really a parallel name, a pseudonym for Yishai. Ella Bas Misha Meis Biet Yoshel Nachash. She is the daughter of the one who died from the council of the Nachash. Okay, so therefore this proves, 8 dice, please don't ask me to prove it too carefully, this proves that Nachash was Yishai, or Yishai was Nachash, and Avigail was really the daughter of Yishai, but he was called Nachash. Why was he called Nachash? Because he should have lived forever, except for the fact that Adam and Eve got involved with the council of the Nachash, and all of humanity is stained forever. And by the way, it looks very close to the original sin.
Yeah, very much.
Can't say any more than that.
Yeah,
Eventually, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's correct. So, at any rate, he's the one guy that we have this great proof for. But the bottom line is, these 4 people are people who only died because they did not sin only because of Et Yoshel Nachash, which really means that, original sin, in other words. Yeah. So the Gemara says, now, who is the author? So we got 2 choices so far. We had 2 opinions before we brought this brisa down about the 4 that died by Et Yoshel Nachash. We had 2 choices. Why does a person die? Choice 1, let's just present this here, because here's where you lose the trend if you don't get it correct. So forget about Yishai. Yishai and his genealogy is not that important. But we had 2 choices why a righteous person would die. Why a person who doesn't sin would die. One choice is they never die. Second choice is they die because everybody dies. Okay? Right. Okay? Which means you have to die. Now, on those 2 choices, we have a question about Moshe and Aaron. Why did Moshe and Aaron die? So in the first answer, the first approach would say, why did Moshe and Aaron die? Let's figure this out. Why did Moshe and Aaron die? They must have sinned.
Right.
If you follow the first approach, Moshe and Aaron died because they sinned. If you follow the second approach, why did Moshe and Aaron die?
Because everybody died.
Because everybody died. Okay. Now, So these are the two choices we have. Now we're trying to fit this third brisa in about the big four to one of the two, because that's the choice that we have, A or B. So it can't be a third choice. That's ridiculous. It's got to fit into the first two in the Gemara's logic. So, so which of the two opinions is it going to fit into? That these four died because of Et Yoshel Nachash. Is it going to fit into the first opinion that if you have no sin you live forever? Right? Or is it going to fit into the second opinion that even if you have no sin you will die? What would you say? It'll fit into the first. Right? And why did Moshe and Aaron die? Why did Moshe and Aaron die? Because everybody dies. Let's see if I understand the Gemara.
Everybody dies, we say. First
right.
one is sin, we said, no?
First one is sin, the second one is everyone.
Right, so it can't be the second one. It can't be the second one, because if it's the second opinion, then why did Moshe and Aaron die? Hey, let's go. I'm working that way. You're correct.
What do we consider the first? Let's say which is
okay, let's go back. Let's go back to let's just say which. The first choice was
only if you sin you die, right? Wasn't that the first? No, I don't know. What do you consider the first?
One second. You just give me a moment. Okay. All right. That's a good question. Which is the first two? Let's talk about the Moshe and Aaron die. Let's talk about the Moshe and Aaron. Let's leave the other two behind. Why did Moshe and Aaron die? Let's go back. There were two choices here. The choices were the discussion about the angels of the Almighty, and the second choice is between Rav Shimon ben Elazar. Okay, so he says that everybody dies. There's Mishpat Echad, Mikra Echad.
But that's what the angels said. That was what the angels.
No. The angels is. Let's go back again. I confused you a little bit. Right. There are two discussions. There are 2 points we're going to plug Moshe in. Where Moshe and Aaron come up, according to the discussion between God and the angels. Right? Why did Adam and Eve die? Because they sinned. Right? Why does Moshe and Aaron die?
Mikra
Echad died. Okay, Mikra Echad died. Good. So that's the Moshe dies because he should live forever, but everybody dies. According to Rav Shimon and Elazar, why does Moshe and Aaron die? Because they sinned. They sinned. Yan no man to be. So now the Gemara says, so there's an opinion here about these 4 people who died. Which opinion does it follow? Because who's missing? Moshe and Aaron are missing. So if Moshe and Aaron are not listed here, so it must have been, they sinned? Yeah?
Must have been, because the implication is these 4 guys didn't sin.
Well, let me think now.
Right. You said the only reason they died is because the Nachash. Yeah, but not because they sinned. Not because everybody dies, just these particular guys just ended up, unfortunately, with some of this Nachash stuff on them. It sounded like, I don't know. Let me kind of read it from the Gemara. Maybe it could be more clear to me as well. Okay. So the Gemara says money. Everybody with me in the middle of the line? Yeah. This is the middle of the fourth line, long line. Money. So whose opinion does this follow? Whose opinion does the 4 guys who died, who died because of Et Yoshel Nachash go through? Right. If you say it's for the author of the halacha-theory, which says that Moshe and Aaron died because Mikra Echad, right, then they really were sin. They didn't sin. Yoika Moshe and Aaron. Well, that can't be the author of this story of the 4 guys, because if that's the case, it should have been 6 guys. Right, absolutely.
Right. So in other words, Ella Lav Rav Shimon ben Elazar he. But it must be that this opinion which says the 4 people. Listen to this. It must be the opinion that says the 4 people died. It can't be the first opinion that Moshe was sinless, because then they would be included. So it must be in the list of the other opinion with Rav Shimon Elazar that Moshe and Aaron sinned. Moshe and Aaron sinned, and these 4 did not sin.
Right.
So what does it mean? Even if you assume that Moshe and Aaron sinned, then this opinion of Rav Shimon Elazar is going to say that you can die without any reason at all. Should I try it again?
These 4 could.
These 4 could. But the implication is that even if, in other words, no matter how you slice it, no matter how you slice Moshe and Aaron, these 4 people could have gotten out of here, except that they died because everybody dies. There's Yesh Misa below Chet.
There is Misa below.
The Yesh Misa below Chet, right?
We know that Moshe and Aaron sinned. We know that.
We assume that, correct. Right, correct. I know, and that's right. And I'm not going to.
Whatever the reason was, it's not 100% clear, but it does say Laman Shlo Latisheni, right?
Correct.
We know that they sinned because of that. It says it twice.
Correct.
And then
I agree. Okay, I agree. The first of discussion on top of this page about Malach Asher Hashem took a different tack and felt that Moshe and Aaron did not sin.
But it's clear that it seems that these four guys died without sin. Right?
Correct. So now, even if you assume that Moshe and Aaron died without sin, well, that can't be right with these four guys, because there should have been 6 guys died without sin.
Exactly.
Right? It's only these 4, which means that Moshe and Aaron were not included.
Right, they must have sinned.
So they must have sinned. So what's the opinion of the Moshe and Aaron? That's the next opinion of Shimon Lazar. So even if you assume that Moshe and Aaron died because they sinned, you still see that there's another opinion that says that there were people who died with not sin.
Exactly.
So no matter how you slice it, even if you assume that Moshe and Aaron were the greatest guys in the world, so forget Moshe and Aaron. What about these 4? In other words, there is no way out. You have no way to explain that, because that's you don't need a question. It's a pshat. But the Gemara is asking this as a question on the previous opinions. The opinion of Shimon Lazar. So according to the previous opinion of Shimon Lazar that Moshe and Aaron died, why was Shimon Lazar forced to say this? Because why else would they die? They must have sinned. But you see that even if you assume that Moshe and Aaron died because they sinned, there is still a possibility, the realm of possibility, that 4 people died without sin.
Absolutely. Only
because of Et Yoshel Nachash. And that's the approach to this Gemara. The finality of this Gemara is, so the Gemara read again. Mani, who is the author of this opinion that says these 4 people died and only these 4? Ilay Matana the Malach Hasharet. If you say it goes back to the Bryce about the Malach Hasharet, going back and forth, say we understand when Adam and Eve died, we don't know why Moshe and Aaron died, and God said, because everybody's got to die. Well, Ika Moshe and Aaron, there's Moshe and Aaron. So you didn't include them in the 4. Elav of Shimon Lazar, it must be of Shimon Lazar, which is the other opinion, says Moshe and Aaron died. The only reason Moshe and Aaron died was because they sinned. Right? Ushmami no, what do you see from this? Yesh misa below chet, yesh yisurim below avon. You see that people can die without sin, and people can get punishments without doing any sin. And the tziyufta the Rabbi Ami, and this goes back on the question we started with, which you were very happy to read about, and who said that nobody dies without sin and nobody gets persecuted without any sin.
Yeah.
So you see that in this is a very difficult theology to walk away with, because it doesn't really help us, right? But it does show to us at least that you see this idea does exist. Okay. Okay, so far so good?
Yeah. Sin here, people dying without sin.
What does it mean?
Are we talking about violates one of the Taryag mitzvahs, or is there some concept?
All of the above. I mean, I cut you off. What does sin mean? What does sin mean? I don't know.
Sin, does that mean you violate one of the Taryag mitzvahs?
Yeah. The Taryag mitzvahs control everything we do. Between Ben Adam L'Chaver and Ben Adam, don't think of ritual only. It's also Ben Adam L'Chavero. Yeah. Right? Does it include Rabban? That's a good. Does it include Rabbanan? Does it include Chumras? Does it include Does it include? The real question is, does it include midos? Right? There are good midos and bad midos. Right? If Moshe, according to the Rambam, the reason that Moshe dies for hitting the rock is not because he hit the rock, because he got kas. Right. So hitting the rock was not a sin. Right? And Moshe says that he was working the shvil hemtzai. Right, so the term the Rambam uses, the middle path. The moment he fell off the middle path, he could no longer be a leader, and he couldn't. Now we read that, and therefore he couldn't lead. So he couldn't lead, couldn't take the Jewish people in, but it really means he couldn't lead and he couldn't live anymore. That was his tafkid, to be working the middle path.
This can't be related to any of the Taryag mitzvahs.
So then he didn't sin, I guess. But that's the reason he couldn't be the leader. So you could.
Can one relate midos to the?
Read Mesil Yisharim. Read Mesil Yisharim. If you don't keep the right midos, it's not possible to be a good Jew. That's the starters, right? So it's all about Zehirus and Zrizus and this, and why if you don't do this, you fall this way, this way, this way. So in the Mussar world, they're very tightly connected, right? But I guess theoretically, if you wanted to be a strict Litvak, okay, who just kept mitzvahs, you could be, with midos could theoretically be there, and not be there, and you can still keep mitzvahs. But the real question is, what does the Naveira mean here? Right? And the term that's used by the 3 terms he used when we talked about the Navi, Nefesh HaChoteit Hitamut, Chet, and then we talked about Pesha, Ufakati B'Shevet Pesham, Uvenegoyim Avonam. So we use Avon, Pesha, and Chet. Sure. So all the kinds of sins are mentioned. I don't know what they mean. So I don't know how to define that.
Pesha is normally unintentional.
Right.
negligence.
Correct. But I think here it's like all of the above are together, mixed in together. Well, Abraham exists before the Torah. I know he did all the Torah by himself. Is there a discussion about it? Where there's discussion about that, one of the reasons we went down to Mitzrayim was because Sarah mistreated Hagar. That's one reason. You can find. I'm sorry.
Abraham didn't want to.
She did. She had culpability. Okay. So the world of the patriarchs, Rav Soloveitchik talks about the concept. The world of the Avos was really a world of acting Jewishly, and I guess the world of from Sinai is following mitzvot. There's a way to be a mensch, to be a human being, which is really what the Derech Avos really is. We like to say that they figured out the Tarek mitzvahs, what it means. We know they do bris milah, but everything else they figured out. I don't know.
I thought they did what they did. We don't know what they did.
Maybe.
Yes. This last little bit, which is the conclusion, right?
Yep.
Aren't there isn't that implied, I think even in some of the Tehillim and other places, that yes, you can get Yisurim, like the good do suffer. Right, and some of the evil don't suffer, and that's how to come in all these midrashim that it's better to suffer here and not here or that. So I'm saying, to me, I don't find this conclusion difficult. I don't think that people die not because they committed a specific or even any sin. I think I'm with that position that said humans will die.
Well, I think most of us probably would work with the concept that humans would sin too. The Misha Berach that they make here every Shabbos about people who don't talk during davening. Okay, yes?
That's so simple.
I never heard that.
And you never heard it? Because you're busy talking, of course. I know. There's a lot to be said, but we're not going to say that. But the bottom line, who wrote that? That was written. Tosfos Yontif wrote it as a result of Khmelnytsky massacres, persecution of 1648, 1649. And they sat and scratched their head. They said, what did we do wrong? What did we do wrong that we should have these horrible, tyrannical persecutions that were just nothing? And they were, so the answer was, they figured they were talking in shul.
Because they were doing everything else right.
Because everything else they were doing right. This was a generation where people did everything. I'm sure there was a local town ganef and but most people, most of the time, did most everything right. On a very high regard. Torah learning was good. Davening was good. Everything was good. So what could happen? So you either say there's no cheshbon, there's no din b'cheshbon, which is a very difficult thing to say. You begin saying, you know what? We were judged at a different kind of level, and this is what our punishment was. That's where that Misha Berach comes from. I don't know.
I heard a wonderful drasha on that subject from Rabbi Moshe Yeres.
Yeah.
And he said that the point that Tosfos Yontif is making is that when the Jews were under attack, they all rushed to the synagogues. And they threw themselves down on the ground, and they prayed with all their energy. And the criticism in the Misha Berach is, now you're praying with such great sincerity. But before, where was your sincerity before? How do you expect Abish to treat seriously your pleas and your cries?
There's no atheist in the far
That's right.
Those are all good, but I'm still looking at the last words that we just said. Yesh, is this a conclusion of the Gemara?
This is the conclusion of the Gemara.
Yesh Yisurim bli avon.
Yeah.
So it's natural, as you say, to think we must have done something wrong, or to figure out what we could have done wrong. But this seems to say
the bottom line is
you can look, but yesh yisurim below yavon.
So this is, I said, the troubling conclusion of the Gemara. Okay, and because it seems to say that you could be squeaky clean
and still die,
and still die, and still have yisurim. Forget death. Okay, death we understand, but yisurim is something we'd like to get out of.
And because you don't know again, I think Eov, to me, is a standing book, which he had Yisurim. There you because the book gave you why he had the Yisurim, you happen to know, even though he had no avon, right?
The point of Eov is he doesn't deserve the Yisurim.
That's what I'm saying. He got Yisurim, but So, but there we happen to know why he got it, right? I'm saying, but maybe the cheshbon of Hashem is so. Even if you get this sort
the point of Eov, by the way, is as troubling that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says you never understand it. Where were you when I made the world?
I agree, but still dealing with this.
So the end result is, you're right. I don't have an answer. The Gemara blind with a tiyufta, which means the first opinion is knocked off. That's what tiyufta means. We end up with saying that it's hard to do a quid pro quo in terms of everything that comes out. And the truth is, Misa, we understand physically the body can't live. Mm-hmm. Right? But Yisurim is like a roll of the dice sometimes. Why do people born here, people born there, and so forth? So once again, I don't have a good answer. Some of the Rishonim, some of the Achronim point out the fact that we believe in Gilgul Neshamos. Mm-hmm. Right? So if you may have neshama from someone who last time around was not such a tzaddik. So you might be tainted by the fact that just your luck, right? Whatever it was, that you could be doing 100%, but the last time around the guy pulled a 45, so that your average, whatever it is, however, this is not your fault necessarily, right? We talk about genetic predilection to certain things, so you could have had simply a neshamadik predilection that you need to overcome. But it doesn't mean that you can't be a tzaddik, doesn't mean you can't get a reward, doesn't mean you can't get this, but what it means is you're not starting with the clean slate. There's a bit of a smudge on that slate. You can overcome it. But there are limitations. That's what it really means. And by the way, that may go back to what the Ejel Shel Nachash is, the fact that it goes back to the first human beings. Whatever was comes back and back and back and back. Doesn't mean that you can't be a tzaddik. This is not a depression type of Gemara. Forget it. Give it up. Eat, drink, and be merry because tomorrow we die. No, it means, but you have to understand that we can never reach 100%. You can't reach 10 out of 10. You can be a 9.9, but you can't be a 10.0 and some of it may not be maybe out of your control. In the same way that there are certain physical limitations that we all have. We have free choice. We can do everything, but you really can't do everything. Mm-hmm. You have a limit by your IQ. You have a limit by your physical strength. You have a limit by your age. Right? You can't simply say, now I want to become a physical nuclear physicist. Or I want to become suddenly the greatest Talmud Chacham. If you don't have a mind that can remember everything, you can be a scholar. Right, but you can't create a photographic memory. So we work within the confines we have. We kind of try to raise ourselves. We can hit 9.9, but we still have to strive to get that. But the 10 of which would guarantee an eternal life, so to speak, and put us among the right, is out of our reach. In the same way, it was out of reach of these 4 people. Okay, we'll stop here. Next week we come and talk about all the people who you thought did sin, and Chazal will try to tell you why they didn't sin. Okay.
David HaMelech.
David HaMelech included, yes. And we may not get to David HaMelech next week. David HaMelech, Shlomo HaMelech.
Is this the same person?